Hey guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in. Today I wanted to do a deep dive of the BECCA Volcano Goddess Collection. They sent this to me maybe a little over 2 weeks ago, and I've been using it ever since then. There is a palette that launched with it, 3 lip glosses, or glow glosses if I can grab them, these guys, as well as a highlighter. And so I have some demos to share, swatches obviously, and I also wanted to do some comparisons specifically of the BECCA highlighter because there are so many of them out at this point. So for all of that goodness, let's go ahead and dive in. First, I want to talk about the product that I was most excited about, the eyeshadow palette. This is actually the first time I've seen BECCA launch a shadow palette in this sort of format, very similar to something I've seen Urban Decay launch in that it is a very sleek and slim looking palette, has a nice large mirror on the inside here, has a hard exterior, and that mirror actually stands up on its own when you open it, which I really like. There are 12 shadows that come inside, and there are 3 different textures in this palette: molten metal, ultra matte, and shimmer. Most of these are shimmery shadows. There are 3 ultra matte and 3 molten metal, but when I first saw this on BECCA's Instagram and then it actually launched on Sephora and Ulta and wherever else is available, this color palette just spoke to me. It is this mixture. First of all, you have this bold cobalt blue, which I feel like everyone is launching in a palette or standalone, mixed in with these smoky taupes and then these outright gold and copper shimmery shades. From the pictures alone, this was calling my name, so I was excited to have a chance to dive in. So after using it, I have to say, overall I like it, but there are a few things I would change about it. So first, let's talk about the things that I like. First of all, I obviously love the color palette itself. The fact that you have that mixture of textures in here really helps you create a dimensional look. I was especially surprised and delighted by the shade called Diamond Dust in here. It really looks like it's gonna be a white frosty or satin shade, but when you dig your hand into it, it is one of the molten metal shades. You dig your hand into it and they say it is a mixture of a pink and yellow frost or iridescence to it, but I would say it's actually more of a light creamsicle orange, which is so surprising for a shadow like this. I feel like we have, although they are pretty, we have done the cream with a yellow shift many times before, many years over. So it was just a nice breath of fresh air to see that white base with a soft orange shift to it. And not an in-your-face orange, but just something that makes you stop and go, is that orange? I dig it. And it really also complements those warmer metal shades over here on the sides, which, by the way, the other molten metal finishes are gilded and lava. Surprisingly, Midnight Sapphire is not in there. It is considered a shimmer, but I wouldn't liken the texture to any of the other shimmers in this palette. I would say it feels a lot more like a molten metal formula. I really like the looks that I've been able to create with this palette, and I do think it's a good one going into fall. However, let's start talking about the things that I might change. First thing is the number of mattes, or maybe it's the shades of mattes. There are 3 you can see here, these top shades. Basically, it is an off-white cream, a very light nude, and then I would say even a light to verging on mid-tone taupe. But basically, there's not really a dark matte shade in here, which I really feel like could have helped ground other shades in this palette, and there's certainly room to do so because these shades, these taupey shades down here, Haze, Crater, and Agate Ash. Geologists, please don't come after me. I'm trying my best. But I feel like all of these shades could be a little redundant. While they are beautiful in their own right, very similar when applied, and I would have preferred a deeper matte shade or even just a different matte shade. No, probably definitely another deeper matte shade in here just to help aid in the blending of these deeper shimmery shades. The other thing that's kind of finicky here are the formulas. Like I said about that Midnight Sapphire, which I am wearing on my lids today, it feels more like a molten metal formula, but is not nearly as pigmented. It's like not as soft and creamy and pigmented as the shimmer, and it's not nearly as bold and pigmented as the molten metal. It feels like a shimmer overspray, but I want this level of pigment on my eyelids, and so I tried to do it. I tried layering it up every which way. Ultimately, what I found to work is what they recommend on the pamphlet that came in with the PR package. It's to wet your brush. They don't say with what, but to wet your brush and then use that to apply the molten metal shadow. even though it's not a molten metal, it's a shimmer, like I said. Anywho, that is what I found helped the most in applying this shade. It's just a shame that you have to work so hard to get it to appear as it does in the pan, because I mean, this is one of the stunners in the palette. That said, Gilded and Lava are great in terms of texture. I prefer to work with my fingers with these just because it's super easy to pat it on the lid and really build up that finish and intensity. That is actually what I did over top of Midnight Sapphire, is I put that Copper Lava shade just right in the center of my lid. So that's what I'm wearing today, but I have also played with Gilded. And then Diamond Dust, like, while I do really like the shade complexity there, it too is a little bit crumbly when you apply. So I recommend using a wet, like a really wet brush to go in with that, because otherwise you can get some sort of larger flecks when it comes to application. I think I have a video here applying it in my inner corner, and I really think you can see how it takes a little bit to build, because as you apply it, depending on what kind of brush you use, it comes off as kind of a majorly chunky shadow as opposed to this continuous molten metal formula. So basically a beautiful palette, but not a perfect palette, which is why I just wanted to explain the things that I would change to you in case those are deal breakers for you. Next, let's talk highlight. The shade to launch with this collection is appropriately named Gold Lava, and I really wanted, here it is in the pan for reference, and I really wanted to compare it to, when I first saw this, the first thing that came to mind was another gold highlighter that BECCA has, and that is Champagne Gold. I think you'll look very, very similar. Yeah, very similar here in the pan. Basically, they look very yellow gold in the pan. However, they're definitely more nuanced when worn. Gold Lava is a warmer golden yellow. Think not completely marigold, but just like going more so in that direction. Whereas Champagne Gold is cooler. If yellow can be cooler, I would say frostier, I guess is what I would say for Champagne Gold. And also Gold Lava has larger glitter particles in it, whereas Champagne Gold looks more like one kind of continuous shimmer across the cheek. There are definitely larger, more distinguishable flecks in Gold Lava. Now right off the bat, because this was a warm gold toned highlighter with larger shimmery flecks, I did not think this was going to be for me. I really rarely use Champagne Gold just because I find it's a harder color to work with on my skin tone, more beautiful on medium deep skin tones. But I'm pretty pleased to say I use a fan brush to apply, so it's a really light but even dusting just on the tops of my cheekbones, and I'm pretty impressed with how it applies, and also surprised at how discreet those shimmery particles are. You really can't tell that there are what look like pearl or like pink pearlescent flecks in here. Those really don't show up on the cheeks. It's more so this gold wash across the cheeks. It just looks a little bit warmer than the Champagne Gold shade. And last, there are 3 glow glosses that launched with this collection. I love this formula, so I was excited about these as well. First of which is the lightest one. This is Metamorphic Gold, and it is described as a soft gold with shimmering pink pearls, but I have to say in certain lights you also see a hint of blue fleck in here. I'm not sure if it's like a duochrome reflect or something, but it's actually a more complex lip gloss than you think, so I think it'd be a really pretty shift over deeper lip bases. Or just a great gold gloss if you want to wear alone or layer it on top as like a subtle sheen in the center of your lips. However you want to wear it, just know it's a more complex gloss than you might think, and it's gorgeous. The next shade up is called Molten Mauve, and this has just been my go-to from this collection because it's fall. Mauve is just a color I tend to gravitate to in general, but this is the one that I've been wearing a lot lately. It is also beautiful, and they describe it as a cool mauve with iridescent pearls. And again, I would say it's far more complex than that. In fact, the shimmer in here is super similar to the shimmer in Metamorphic Gold. The pink comes through less in here though, and the blue shines through more just because the pink blends in with the mauve in here as opposed to contrasting with the yellow. So again, just a really fun but complex lip gloss. The last shade looks gorgeous in the tube. It is called Ruby Fire, and it is described as a crimson with gold and pink pearls. That is exactly it. This is the one shade, however, though, where I found that both the pigment in the base of the gloss as well as the iridescence in the gloss sunk into my fine lines, and it was one of those where as I applied it and layered it up to try and get the kind of pigmentation I see in the tube, as I would blot it, I just found that it would gather and crease and wear unevenly. And so this is definitely not one that I reach for just because of that. I don't want to have to worry about applying it really precisely only to have it move on me the second I blot my lips or eat something. So I don't reach for and probably wouldn't recommend that, but I do love the other two shades. And then while I'm talking about them, I also want to compare Molten Mauve to the BECCA Chrissy Teigen Glow Gloss in the shade Beach Nectar, because it's one I've been talking about a lot lately because I love it so much, and they look very, very similar in the tube. They're not actually all that similar. The Chrissy Teigen gloss is, interestingly enough, it's warmer in the base, like the mauve itself is warmer and more berry leaning, yet it has a blue iridescence to it, whereas Molten Mauve is cooler in the base. It almost, by like when you put them side by side, Molten Mauve almost looks greigey mauve compared to the Chrissy gloss, but it has those slight pink flecks in with the blue iridescence. So pretty different, and while I wouldn't say you need both, if you're considering either, I would definitely go more with what you feel works for your undertone, just because there is such a noticeable difference in between what is warmer and what is cooler. Although I wear both because I love them. So you can have both, it's just you don't need them both. And that's that. And I mean, that's actually that for the whole video. Like, that's the whole collection reviewed. I hope that was helpful. If you guys had your eye on any of these things, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've tried them down in the comments below. If you haven't tried them and you're not sure now, also start a conversation, let me know, let's talk about it. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.